Good afternoon, all of you. We'll continue with the same the slides which we were discussing yesterday. This is about writing the report because I told that whenever we do any type of research, we have to tell this to the public or the research fraternity so that this will be given to the right person to take it forwards. So that we can do either by a oral presentation or by a report or publication in a manuscript or some conferences or a particular thesis, that type of thing. So in the previous class, we have covered this publication ethics part, research ethics part, as well as preparing the oral presentation. And also I was telling that there is a art of writing a research paper or the thesis, in which normally the report of the manuscript, this is about general manuscript for journal publications. So we go in a three-stage preparation program, and first draft is a rough draft, next is the second draft, and the third draft. So we'll continue with from this only. So first draft, this is in this stage a researcher can write what has been done in the research study and why that work has been done. So in that case, the gap areas in that particular area of research, we have to, somebody wants to let in. So in the first stage, first we have to mention that what work has been done. This is a rough draft, so the sequence may not be proper because this is the beginning of your writing. So we have to write that what we have done, and when we write what we have done, then it will definitely come that why we have done, because we have gone through the literature survey and we have found out that there are some gap areas where we can contribute to the society type of thing. So what are the gap areas in the research field already happened, so that we can include in that. So then we can a little elaborate that what exactly procedure we have carried out, and what methodology, etc., and what was the theory or technique we have applied for our particular work. So those things we can write down. Next is the technical difficulties faced, because once we have completed the experiment, so during our experimental things are it may be a experimental, it may be a database collection type of thing also. It means survey type of research also it can happen. So there may be some difficulties faced by the particular researcher, which has to be told to the public or the audience. So what are the difficulties we face during that particular things, that means sequence of research? Excuse me, cut ho gaya. Yeah, we were continuing with the first draft. So whatever the technical difficulties we face during the particular research sequence, that also we have to write down. And what are the measures we have taken to overcome this, and how finally we have overcome, or there are still some of things which we could not overcome during that particular research. Those things we can write down in the first draft. And then we can find out what is the broad findings of that particular research. And at the end, we have to tell that what is the concluding remarks from this particular set of work or results. And in this also, tables and charts can be typeset using computer and kept separately in order to avoid rewriting them. So this is the first draft we are preparing. And if you put all the tables and figures in the proper space, so during the changes, we have to again do a lot of corrections. So we can keep the tables and whatever figures or whatever we want to show in the particular research article. So we can keep it ready in the separate file. And after finalizing the first draft only, we can incorporate those things. So those things, but has to be made ready. Introduction part to be informative. So in this case, in the beginning, we have roughly written that what are the gap areas and why we have done this. So that becomes the introduction part of our particular write-up. So in that introduction part, the introduction part has to be informative. So we have to tell that what exactly we want to, how we want to introduce particular research program, and clearly mentioning the gap areas. But the introduction part should not be too lengthy. Otherwise, the reader may lose the patience. So in that manner, we have to write down the thing, and also conclusions should be precise, clear, and objective. So what we wanted to do and what we have observed, and whether we have observed something else and that we want to conclude. So those things precisely we have to mention in the conclusion part. And further directions, maybe point out that these are the direction in which further research can be done. That's why I told that during the research, any research, the literature survey is very important. And during the literature survey, whenever we refer to some old work, so at the end of the old work, many times they refer the what are the gap areas or the further what type of work can be carried out. So on that basis, we might have chosen our research program. So in our research output also, we have to mention that what are the further directions for this particular type of work. And also, since a research paper is identified by its title, it should be brief and not more than 10 to 15 words. Because many times in the reference section, you will be getting only the title. So from the title, the audience should feel that they should read this particular. So it has to be attractive and it should be informative. And also it should not be very long. Sometimes I have seen that 2-3 lines type of people write that they gets published in good journals also. But that may be avoided. It's person to person's choice maybe. But in general, it should not be very long type of title. It should be precise and it should convey the things properly. And also the subject index of a paper is primarily based on the words in the title. Therefore, few keywords which are helpful to classify the paper can be included appropriately in the title. So because keyword search is there, but apart from the keyword search, the title should have that important words by which people may relate and may feel like reading that particular full article. So next is, how does the reader decide whether to read the content of a paper or not? So that they decide normally by the abstract. So here when I'm talking about the abstract, it is normally the written abstract, but nowadays many times this graphical abstract also, the journal paper, they ask for submit some graphical abstract, because from graphical abstract, if it is a really looking good and lot of information they can derive from the graphical, because when we visualize something and we see something, we feel like yes, something good is happening there. Like अगर कुछ हमको अच्छा दिख रहा है एक स्लाइड में, तो हमको लगेगा कि हाँ, हम उसके बाद उसका एब्स्ट्रैक्ट भी पढ़ लें, और क्योंकि एब्स्ट्रैक्ट बाद थोड़ा लेंथी होता है, तो कभी-कभी लोग बोर हो जाते हैं, तो so they just see the graphical abstract. So graphical abstract also should convey what exactly has been done and what we wanted to convey to the audience. And also similarly, along with the graphical abstract, the text abstract is also very important. By reading the abstract, a reader would decide whether the content of the paper is useful to him or her. So if it is useful, then the person will go through the full paper, and otherwise they may skip also. Therefore, the abstract should have positive information about the content of the paper and summary of the work reported in it. So here I'm telling that positive information about the content. Positive information is not about only some nice things about the research. No, positive things means what exactly we have got in during the result. So if it is a negative result also, that can be portrayed in a positive manner. So that way we have to present that yes, by doing this type of things, we are not getting the whatever result has been thought of by following this particular process. So the next person we should not should not do the similar type of mistake. So abstract should have positive information about the content of the paper and the summary of the work reported in it. Furthermore, if the abstract has final results and main conclusion of the paper, then the reader who has a general interest in the subject can know the outcome of the paper without reading the entire text. So abstract, if contains the conclusion part, also few things. So the reader will come to know that exactly, yes, by doing this is the findings. So the full paper they can refer afterwards. So the abstract is very important for any research paper or research output. And here also I'll mention that the conclusion and abstract I have seen sometimes it is just copy and paste. It should not be like that. The abstract is the abstract and conclusion is the what are the things we have derived from that particular research. Okay. So this is about the first draft. So then we'll go to the next draft, that is the second draft. So this is the most important and difficult part of writing, because first draft preparation is the rough type of thing. So whatever we feel like we write, and in the second draft we have to make in a proper format. So extreme care must be taken in writing this second draft. One convenient approach is to edit the first draft, imagining that someone else has written it. Because if we have only written the first draft and we are changing it, we feel like, yes, that is the things, it should be like that. So, but if we feel that, yes, the first draft is somebody else's and we are giving our right opinion at this stage, so we'll completely may change that also. So it's better to feel like that we are reading the first draft as a new thing, and then we can go on changing whatever we feel like the audience will prefer to read. Unclear points, jargons, weakness of the reports have to be identified and revised. Over generalization of the outcome also should be avoided. So in this case, if we have written many things and we feel that we are overgeneralizing the things, then at this stage we have to remove them and we have to revise the whole article of the manuscript. So if you have introduced any graphics or tables, discussed it in the text. So now in this second draft, we have to include all the figures, tables, and etc. in this, and also we have to mention about the tables and figures in the text also, so that the reader, whenever they're reading, they should connect the text with the figures or tables. It should not happen that we have given some figures, but we have not mentioned it in the text. So it will look like something else has been added. So there should be continuity and there should be connection between the text as well as the graphics and tables. And attention must be paid to the arguments made and the logical flow of the work presented, the quality of the supporting evidence, and conclusion. So do this in each chapter, or this is chapter normally that will come in the thesis. So in that, in the second draft here, we are talking about article or manuscript for journal publications. So in each portion, we have to give the importance. And more importantly, grammar must be checked. In this particular second draft, the grammar has to be checked thoroughly. A careful spell check must be made. Use simple words as far as possible, because if you use very complicated words, that may be require further understanding exactly what we want to convey. So we can simply, because we are writing here science normally, but if it is an English research or literature research, we may include some literature oriented things. But in normally science related research, it should be science related. It should be simply simple words to convey the things, and complicated words may be avoided. Indecisive words such as perhaps, like in the previous class I have mentioned during that oral presentation also. I think this is the thing, and rather, somewhat, this is important. So this type of words should be avoided in the written text also. And uses of some particular words repeatedly, for example, very extraordinary, invariably, should be avoided, because many times many of us feel like writing. It is very important to tell that this is a very important piece of work. This is a very conclusive. That like this very we use very frequently sometimes. So those type of words may be avoided as far as possible. Sometimes we can use, that is fine, but repeatedly we should not use them. And expressions such as it seems, there may be, since, putting, etc. should be replaced by appropriate equivalent words, because nowadays synonyms we can get, so we can go for a simpler and similar words. But because if you are putting like it seems, then shows that there is a doubt on that particular thing. So we should be convinced first ourselves, then we have to tell that to the audience. Style and presentation and grammar can be improved by asking our friends, colleagues to read and give their critical comments. So whenever we finish writing the second draft, we can give it to some of our friends who we feel who are not exactly from the field, but good at certain English or something like that. So they can give their inputs. In some universities, the report is first read by an English teacher. So this is happens sometimes. So English teachers, the job to correct the English properly. It is there. Nowadays, softwares are also available, but AI we should not use for writing our things proficiently. So because nowadays many people are using AI tools, so it's better to express in our own language. So the person, the researcher will correct that the English teacher he or she may correct the grammar and give suggestions. After this, only a researcher can submit the thesis or for the journal publications. Complicated and lengthy sentence has to be written and broken. Sometimes I have seen one sentence going up to 5 lines. So this type of things should be avoided during writing a manuscript for a journal, because we can convey the things in 2 or 3 parts. So there is no need to have a continuous statement or continuous sentence. So similar sentence and sentence conveying the same information must be eliminated, because many times I have seen that they say the same thing repeatedly for 5-7 times. So this type of if we can remove certain lines, we should eliminate in this second draft stage only. The conclusions may carry something more than a repetition of the findings indicated elsewhere. So in the conclusion, if we have written in the results discussion part exactly same things, we should not repeat in the conclusion part. All conclusions should be directly related to the particular research. Perhaps the conclusion could reveal a special insight of yours, throwing up a possibility of findings being applied to a different situation or even different discipline. So conclusions can be applied to a different situation also. That also we can include there. Proper reference of the related work should be included. So whatever we feel like we should, because similar type of work has been done, or this is for some comparison of our result, we are comparing with something exactly that paper. We cannot put all the data for our comparison, but we can give the reference. And trivial matters and obvious conclusions should not be included. And if there are such sentences, they should be dropped from that second draft. So this way we can prepare the second draft. So next part is the third draft. So third draft is the last part, last stage before sending it for publications. So in this stage, one can concentrate on final touches and finishing. So in the first draft, we have just put all our whatever we feel like put together in a single place. And second draft, we have made it in a proper format, and also made whatever grammatical check and whatever mistakes, whatever repetition, those things we have avoided. And then we feel that yes, now things are ready. So third draft is the final step. So in this case, we have to do the fine adjustments in that particular report. this should be in the direction of making the report weighty, authoritative, attractive, and convincing. So, whenever we are writing a journal manuscript for a journal, so it should be attractive. Otherwise, the reader may not be get interested in reading the full thing. And also, it should have its own weight. It should have its own way to convince the people that yes, this is the way we have done, and this is the output, and this is authentic output. So formatting to be made as per where the work to be published, because if you want to publish in a particular journal, so that format we have to make. And sometimes in the various journals, nowadays they are having some page restrictions. So in the beginning, also I have told in one class that we had prepared one manuscript for a very long manuscript we had prepared, and we wanted to publish in a particular journal, and there the page restriction for only 8 pages. So we have to concise the things so that some important things should not be get lost, but everything should be conveyed in a particular manner, and which for that journal, what is the audience, on that basis we have to prepare our third draft. The similar words and format should be avoided in successive sentences. Make sure that the script clearly shows the originality of the author and importance of the outcome of the study performed. In all these 3 stages of report preparation, one should follow a proper style of writing. So that depends upon personal style also. So we have to, it should be scientific, but there should be a personal touch to the particular writing. Use clear and unadorned English appropriate for the readers. So it should be, clarity should be there. One has to be aware of to whom the research report is important. That's why I told that if we are sending for publication, we have to see that what will be the audience to whom we target. That we feel that our research should reach to those type of audience. So if we have that in mind, so we can do that thing in this third stage, or this the final stage. And a report is not for the supervisor. Because whatever report we are writing, it is not for our guide or supervisor. It should be for the particular audience which we want to target. So it is better to avoid the use of personal pronoun. Use of I and the author should be avoided. Some supervisors like to be like sometimes I have seen that the authors have written that, in my opinion, this is the thing. So, and we propose to do this type of work. So this type of those three type of things, it's better to avoid, and we can write that the work has been carried out like this. So in that manner, we can prepare the third draft of the particular manuscript. So in this, both active and passive voice should be used whenever necessary or appropriate. However, when using them, one should check whether the meaning is strictly correct. So active or passive voice when we are using, so we should not tamper the meaning. That is more important. For example, when writing the experimental results, the experimental results agree with the theory, we must check that. We should check whether we are strengthening the experimental results or the theory. So sometimes when we compare the things with some our experimental results with some theory. So in which we'll overemphasize if we overemphasize the theoretical part, it seems that our experimental results are just addition to the whatever is there prescribed or given in the theory. So we should give importance to our things also. And whenever there is importance to the theory, that we have to mention. Care must be taken in using present and past tenses. Use past tenses to describe the data collection and work done by the others and you. So whenever we have collected the data and done the experiments, so we have to write that the experiment was carried out using this particular technique, and the data were collected using this particular software, or we had collected the survey was conducted in that particular area where a lot of interpreters were there. Our persons went to the public and collected the data like that. So proper tense we have to do, and proper interpretation, assessment and discussion present tense is appropriate. So for interpretation and assessment and discussions, present tense is also appropriate. Like that, from that included, we have concluded that this is the thing. So this is in accordance to the theory. So like this, we can write down also that in that case, present tense is fine. But when we have collected the data, that has already been the past things. So in that case, we have to use the past tense. So we should not get confused that where to use the past tense and where to use the present tense. Since a research article is to be read by experts also in the field, avoid expressions such that, in other words, to put in a simpler way. So if we are writing that, the experts in that field, because our the topic will not be read only by the public, it will be read mostly by the experts in that field. So they may not like that such phrases. The expert may not take kindly to such phrases, as they feel that they are competent to grasp even complex ideas stated in difficult items. So if it is little difficult also, they will understand. So they may not like that. So between various stages, it is advisable to give gap of few days so that you can leisurely think of the manuscript and record how to revise. So first stage to second stage to starters, we can give some gap so that by fresh mind, we can revise the things to make it in a better way of presenting the research output. So that will avoid unnecessary tension and half-hearted writer. So how do you ensure that your paper will be well received by the readers? Some of the suggestions here I have noted. Before sending it to the journal, author can ask their colleagues, I have mentioned already, to friends working in same field to read it and comment on it. The paper can be given to a colleague who are not familiar with the topic so that they can be attracted by non-specialists in the field. So if you are targeting our topic not only to the experts but also some more number of readers, so if we are giving to a colleague who is not exactly from our field, so they can feel that whether they are able to relate it or not. So if they are not related, then we may not be able to capture that type of audience. So that we have to take care. Don't feel offended if a colleague suggests drastic changes in that particular manuscript, because we have getting every suggestion is should be means welcome by the researcher. Think back to couple of papers which have made an impression on you and are still long remembered. Note down and analyze the style, presentation, and other features that have been impressed to you. Because while reading various literature, sometimes we feel like some papers are excellent because it conveys the things in a very concise manner, but very precise and very well mannered, and it touches us. So what is there which has touched us? So if we can understand that way, we can improve our way of writing. So in that manner, we can improve the any draft before sending for publication. So these are about the research publication in the form of a manuscript for various journals, or sometimes a conference or report also. So now I'll be telling you briefly about the layout for a research report or a PhD thesis or MPhil dissertation. So I'll be mostly giving emphasis on PhD thesis because all of the participants in this class are mostly PhD students. So we'll be mostly emphasizing on what are the way to give the right way to write a PhD thesis. The layout of a research report is the list of various parts of the report or the thesis. Generally, a research report should consist of the following three components I have mentioned. First is the preliminary pages, then the main text, and the end matters. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning, the preliminary pages. Preliminary pages include the title of the report. Here also we include the acknowledgement part. Whoever has been contributed to the particular research work or the PhD thesis, so we give the acknowledgement. And we also include the certificate page where the candidate or the researcher used to write, and the guide used to also certify it. And also some other certificate if you are getting in that particular research work, that certificate also we can include in that particular initial pages. Next is the list of publications and table of contents also include in the first preliminary pages. Acknowledgements are written to thank those who have helped the researcher during their course of investigation. For a book, it is in the form of a preface or foreword. Acknowledgement should be brief and simple, modest, and given only to substantial assistance provided by the guide, head of the department, staff of the department, agencies which provided financial support, collaborators, institutions where the work has been carried out. Acknowledgement should be made at the time of public viavos also. So whenever we are presenting at the final viavos of the PhD thesis, there also we should give the acknowledgement to the desired persons who have contributed during the research work. There is a chance for a researcher to forget to say acknowledgement at the end of an oral presentation. To avoid this, he or she may do it at the beginning of the presentation. So sometimes they thank whoever has supported in the beginning, because sometimes they exceed the timing during the oral presentation, and they miss the persons to whom they wanted to thank during that particular oral presentation. So during oral presentation, sometimes it can be included in the beginning, but if you are well in time management, it is better to put it at the end. Because in the beginning, if you are thanking everybody, so that will not look very nice. But if you feel like I may omit during the presentation, so you can include some of them in the beginning of the presentation. But in the PhD thesis writing, it can be in the beginning of that initial pages, acknowledgement section. And whoever has contributed properly to your work, then their name also should be appear. Unnecessarily, we should not acknowledge each and every persons we know or we are come across. Those, it should not be very lengthy. So we have to judge properly to whom we wanted to thank during that particular research work. Like the department who has funded for the particular research work, we should definitely thank them also. And the way we have carried out the work, that also we should thank. And if some colleagues have really contributed during our research, them also we should thank definitely. So acknowledgement page should contain all these things. And also declaration in the certificate page by the scholar. Every research report should have an abstract. So after the preliminary page, there should be an abstract. It is necessary part of any scientific or non-scientific research report. For thesis also, there is a initial, we don't call it abstract actually, we call it a synopsis. In a research article, it appears next to the author's name and affiliation. In the case of PhD thesis, before its submission, the final thesis normally we submit during a PhD work. So before the actual submission of the thesis, we submit the synopsis. An elaborated abstract of the thesis is called synopsis, has to be submitted to the institution where registration of PhD degree is made. Like all of you have registered in HBNI. So whenever you are submitting your PhD thesis, before that you have to submit a synopsis. It's a 12 to 15 pages normally we write. That's because the thesis is more than 200 pages. In the beginning, we cannot give the 200-page things. So we concise it into the small form. So 12 to 15 pages normally we write down our thesis, which covers all the things which we wanted to elaborately explained in the PhD thesis. So first is the whole research publication in journals. First part is the abstract. So similarly, in the PhD thesis part, the small part is the synopsis. So synopsis will contain all the things which we wanted to convey during that particular research. So next is the procedures adopted in the work. Results of the study to be presented in a very condensed manner. So whatever we do the research work, if you write each and every line and every sentence format, it may be a 500 or maybe 1000 pages report. So that will be too big to handle and too big to give it to anybody for reading also. So normally we keep some 200 to 300 pages like this in a PhD thesis. So all the things we should not write, because if we are working for 5 years, 4 to 5 years, so we can definitely write 1,000-page report also. That will not be a big thing. But that's why I'm telling that each and everything we need not write in our thesis. So we have to see that what are the things to be written and what are the things to be omitted during that particular thesis writing. And we have to do it in a condensed manner. So, but it should not be so condensed that will not convey the things to a PhD, because PhD thesis is the elaborate things. Here we have to convey that what exactly the way we have carried out the things and what are the objectives in the beginning, and for that objective what are the tools we have, and how we have optimizedly used, because here we are talking about research methodology. So we have optimized everything before doing the actual experiments. So how we have optimized those things, and during the work also, what are the things we have faced, any difficulties we have faced, how we have overcome. All the step wise we have to explain in our particular thesis. So thesis will be a longer version. It should not be like a small manuscript. So we have to elaborate, but should not elaborate everything in the thesis. It can help you link in a logical way the reasons for the research and aims of the work. It should contain answer to the question, what was done in that particular research project, why it is of interest, and how it has been carried. So these questions has to be answered during the particular thesis. So here, these things we have to include in our thesis writing. So what were the outcomes of the work done, work carried out? What is the significance of the results? Because if we are giving some results, what is its significance? Is there any relevance? So those things we have to include. One should emphasize the original contribution in the abstract. The abstract of the PhD thesis will be about 3 or 4 pages. 4 pages I've just written, but a synopsis normally we write 12 to 15 pages, including the reference also. Few references we include in that. The table of contents gives title of the chapter. So after the synopsis, we also give the table of contents, that what we exactly wanted to have in the thesis. In the table of contents gives the title of the chapters, sections, title of the appendices, then their page numbers. All the preliminary pages should be numbered in lowercase Roman numbers, or depending upon the institutions. So that is, the preliminary pages has to be numbered in a different manner, and then the main text are normally numbered in a different manner. So there will be distinction between the preliminary pages and the main thesis writing pages. So next is in the PhD thesis is the main text. The main text presents the details of the research work and the results. Also, the main text will contain the introduction part. This part of the thesis should provide the following about the research work. First is the introduction, definitely. So why we have carried out, that will come from the introduction, because what has been done in that particular research area, and what are the gap areas, and why we have gone for that particular research work. Then in the main text, we have to include the actual research work performed and what are the findings, that is the results and discussion part. At the end of the main text, we should include the summary and conclusion as well as the future outlooks. Now coming to the introduction part, the purpose of the introduction is to give a brief outline in that particular field of research. In this part, one can bring clearly the importance of the field and the current status of it. It should contain an overview of the problem, its importance, statements about the hypothesis, or specific questions to be explored. This is followed by a preview of the scheme of the following chapters, that is an outline of the plan of the work. Here the aim of each chapters and their contents can be briefly stated. Related and relevant work done by others must be pointed out. Various concepts and definitions of scientific and technical terms necessary for understanding the research work undertaken are to be defined and explained. Details of statistical tools used and or quantities used for the study can be given in a separate chapter. Irrelevant and less informative materials need not be presented. The theory and experimental setup used should be clearly described with proper references. Define the technical terms used in the dissertation of the PhD work, either by a reference to a previous published definition or by a precise definition. Such a definition should be given only once in the report. So this is all about the introduction part. So here we have to mention the purpose. We have to mention here that why we have attempted this particular research work, and what are the things people have done, and how they have things, and then we have to include that what we wanted to do here, and for that what are the things we have chosen as a tools to be used, and is there any theory behind using that particular tools. So those things we can include. And also it should not contain very elaborate things about the tools which we have used. For just one example, I'll tell. So we work, I personally work on nuclear analytical techniques like neutron activation analysis and extrafluorescence. So if I am writing my thesis, so here I have used this particular extrafluorescence technique for many of the measurements. So in the introduction, I'll write everything about extrafluorescence. What are the sources used? What are the work carried out? What are the different metrics? What are the principle? What is the figure? What is the instrument? What is the everything? If I'm writing, this is not correct way of preparing the thesis. So whatever is relevant for our particular thesis work, that part only we have to write. Other things we need not write. So we have to be precise in that introduction part. So here also I have told that irrelevant and less informative materials should not be presented here. And we have to, if we are using some technical terms during our thesis presentation, so those technical terms also should be included in this particular section. The introductory chapters should be prepared in such a way that it should be interest to the reader in the subject matter of the research. It should not be aimless, confused, or lacking a precision. So if we are writing each and everything about the work in the introduction, the reader may get lost during that particular reading process. So we have to make it interesting so that the reader will go through it, and they should not get confused that what is going on, what is written, it's not clear. To be precise, the introductory part should cover the following aspects. We have mentioned few of the things here. Features of the topic, present status in this particular field, some unsolved problems, that is the gap areas. That's why we have gone for this particular research work. Statement of the problem undertaken, that what exactly we wanted to focus during that particular work. Importance and justification of the present problem, because if we find out the gap areas, but there is no relevance in the present scenario, so we have to give that yes, in the present problem is important, and there is a justification for doing and taking it to the forward. So preview of the schemes of the following chapters and the interrelationship definition of various scientific terms used, methodology used during that particular research work. So this is the introduction part. Next is the actual research work we have to present in the thesis. So this is the heart of the research report or the thesis. The actual research work undertaken, difficulties faced, technical details, results, conclusions, future direction, all these things form in that actual research work part. This is the main part of the proportion. This part can be presented in a few chapters. So first chapter may be introduction, and second chapter we may include the tools which we have used during the work. Next chapter onwards, we can include the actual work and how the flow is going. So we can divide it into few chapters. And the last chapter we can have conclusions and future outcomes. So each chapter should contain introduction, research work, results, and conclusions. Because if there is a particular work which has carried out in phases. So in the first phases, we have to introduce that in this part, this type of work we have carrying out. So for small introduction also we can include in that particular each chapter. it should not be an elaborate introduction like in the first introduction, but a small, we have to introduce that this chapter will emphasize on this, and these things we are going to do, and on that basis, on what basis we have chosen this particular area of work that we can include in that particular research, in that particular chapter. Materials should be organized systematically and presented under appropriate headings and subheadings. So we have to give headings and subheadings in every chapter, so that by reading the headings we can see that okay, this type of things has been done. So if we feel like the reader may feel like reading a particular area, so they can concentrate in that particular area. First, write the chapters that describe your actual research work. After this, prepare the conclusions and introduction part. So in that manner, I have told that preparing the various drafts for the manuscript for journal publication, the research work also, we can write down the what exactly work we have done, then what is the outcome, then we can include the introduction part, because on the what basis we have chosen. So there may be back and forth movement also in the writing in the beginning. So sufficient time should be given for writing the PhD thesis. When writing the actual work, collect the terms and note down the matter which are to be defined and described in the introduction. So whatever during the whole work, so that terms we can take it from the rough draft. For preparing the PhD thesis report, one should not simply copy word by word from his research articles, because normally during our research work we publish few articles in journals normally, and or some conference proceedings also. We should not just copy paste and make it together for the final PhD thesis. There should be different, we should change the way of writing, because PhD thesis is an elaborate way to give the full research work. So we should not just simply copy and paste the whatever we have published already. Even if the content of the thesis is the work reported in his research publication, the student should reword the material without changing the meaning. We should, in that way, by changing, we should not convey something else. So give much more details, because I told that thesis is a much more detailed type of article. So here more details can be given, more explanations can be given, and whatever suggestions and possibly a better reorganization of the content can be given in the PhD thesis. So wherever possible, the results should be presented in the form of some figures, illustrations, or tables, or pie chart, or some block diagram, some flow chart. Those type of things we can do, and also some histogram type of things also we can have present. So this will give give the or that reader to have the information quickly from the. If we write everything, the reader may get lost during the reading. But if there is some figures also included, so it will be more attractive. I'm not telling that we should beautify the thesis, but some figures including in a proper places, it will attract the attention. All the figures should be clearly specify the variables and the axis, units used, and other necessary information, whatever, because sometimes I've seen that many figures without any access also people include. So that is we should definitely avoid that type of thing. Figure caption should not be a reproduction of the sentence in the text. It should be a concise one, the caption. It must clearly state what it is. The figure should be clearly explained in the text also. So whenever we are putting a figure, I told that it has to be tables we have to include in the text also. Data should be fitted to an appropriate mathematical expression. Nowadays, sophisticated softwares also are available for various curve fittings. After making a curve fit or plotting a set of data, proper explanation for observed variation of the data should be given. So if we are fitting, so what is the variation and why we have gone for that type of fitting, which we should explain in the text. A set of data measurement without any analysis and discussion is of no use. So if you are just putting our data in the table, so it should not convey, it will not convey properly. We have to discuss the things properly. We have to do a proper analysis of the data. That is also very much important. Arguments may be conveniently presented as a series of numbered or bulleted points rather than one chunk of crowded paragraph. Instead of paragraph, we can mention the outcomes as some bulleted forms. Nowadays, people ask for also bulleted form in various formats. In even in journal publications, they give they say us to give the bulleted outcome of the particular research work. So bulleted things are easier to see. Mention further unexplored areas which further researchers may conquer. So you have at the end of the work, you have to mention that these are the unexplored work during the particular things. We may continue in this direction, or the other researchers may also continue in that direction. And extreme care must be taken in typesetting mathematical equations, variables, parameters involved in the study. Italic or Greek letters or mathematical symbols can be used for variables and parameters. For example, small x or capital X should not be used as a variable term name, because sometimes we use this as a multiplication also. So we have to be careful in that. All the equations should be centered and numbered. We have to give the numbering, proper numbering for each equation. Vectors should be clearly specified and arrow mark over the name or by bold face name. Equations should not be repeated. So if we are having a thesis, we should not repeat the various equations, because I was going through some research output of some of our students. So in that we had seen that one equation was given in 3 different places. So this is not the right way to present. So we have to carefully say that whether that equation has been presented in some other chapter in the previous chapter. So if it is previous chapter, we can simply refer to that as per the equation that the previous chapter. So this is continuing. So we can continue that one. And jokes and puns should not find a place in a research output, even if it in a manuscript or also in research thesis, PhD thesis. Use correct or incorrect to refer to the results of others. Don't use the words bad, terrible, stupid. So if we feel like somebody's work is not properly means given the proper things, the output in a proper manner, we should not get that the stupid output from that particular article. That type of word we should never use in a research output. And very bad things or bad or terrible, that type of thing also we have to avoid. Avoid also using today, modern times, soon, since in terms of based on lots of type of something like just about, number of, so various words like that. Also, you, I, hopefully, may, this type of things also we should avoid during a particular research work. There is no need to mention the circumstances in which the results were obtained. Because if we are carried out in a very difficult circumstances, but we have to tell that difficult situation, my personal things are going on in a very difficult, I am having some personal problems, that should not reflect in the output. So circumstances doesn't mean that environment things. So it's not that circumstances in which the results were obtained, because sometimes we feel that time was very short to do the experiment. So we have conducted only one replicate analysis, not 4 replicates. So circumstances things that we should not include it, because we are doing the research, we have to do it in a proper manner. An error often made by wasting valuable time for the physical embellishment of the document beyond a point, without paying careful attention to the correctness and accuracy of the content. Even a couple of typos can give impression that you have failed to pay adequate attention to details. So we have to check the thesis or the papers very carefully. Typographical errors also definitely should be minimum, and in the best manner it should be nil during the report preparation. Otherwise, if you feel that there are many typographical errors, the reader will find the reviewer may find that this is not properly done, so they will simply reject it, or may send for a major revision. So in the beginning, we have to take proper care. Even a couple of typos I have mentioned. Errors in the spelling or technical and general words show the poor light and otherwise worthy thesis that tells a vital story. If your work is really good and you have presented it in a very nice manner, but you have used some word, there are a lot of spelling mistakes are there. Nowadays, it is little difficult. It's not that prominent because spell check definitely we use. But if there is a lot of spelling errors or technical errors and some general words is not properly used, so it will give that yes, the thesis is not that. So the reviewer may reject it also. So those things we have to take it into account. And next, the last part is the conclusion and reference and bibliography. I'll just mention, and the next class will continue also this. So conclusion, at the end of each chapter, except the introductory chapter, one can place briefly the summary of the outcome of the work presented in that chapter under the heading conclusion. So at the end of the thesis, we have to give the full conclusion of the thesis, but from each chapter, we can also conclude that during this work, we have concluded this. They should clear and precise, like I mentioned previously. The relevant questions which are still not answered or new questions raised by the work present have to be mentioned. Whether the answers to the questions are obtained or not, if obtained, in which chapter they are presented should be specified. Mention possible future research also in the conclusion. It is important to make a connection between two consecutive chapters because thesis will be a consecutive chapters. So it should be there should be a continuity from chapter to chapter. Okay, chapters should not look like reports or isolated works. So there should be some connection between the works or should be connection with the introductions. There should be a link between the consecutive chapter and the link should be clearly brought out. So we have to mention properly that, what are the link between the things. And appendices are supplementary contents which are not placed inside the main report in order to keep the continuity of the discussion. However, they are relevant for understanding the particular part of the report. And appendix may contain a brief summary of the theory or the numerical method which have been used and found elsewhere. A lengthy mathematical derivation, if it is there, it is used, but not exactly relevant to your research. So that can be put in the appendix or the supporting material. And technical details, if you feel like we have not given all the details, that can be given as a supplementary material also. A list of values of constants and parameters used in the ring theory, those things also we can include in a supplementary material. So appendices can be placed at the end of the report after the references. They should be numbered by capital alphabets or as per the prescribed one. Last one is the reference or bibliography that I'll continue next class also. References or bibliographies are sources consulted. Each reference should contain the name of the authors, title of the paper, journal name, volume name, and of the issue, which the year, starting page and end page if possible, and year of publications. So in the case of book sources, its authors, title, publisher's name, year of publication, year of place of publications, edition of that particular article. So those things can be included. So this much I wanted to convey you today. So next class we'll continue from this. Thank you.